Welcome, everybody, to a very special This Week in Crypto. We've got a great show after some wonderful news about the Ethereum ETF spot, or the first spot Ethereum ETFs, I should say, being approved by the SEC yesterday. Obviously, no major price reaction to it yet. In fact, so far, it looks like there's been a dip in markets since the news was announced, and this is somewhat typical. You know, we've talked about it going back to the Ethereum merge in 2022 and the Bitcoin halving about 5 weeks ago. Oftentimes, we'll hear the rumor, and the initial people who get in on that rumor are the ones who benefit the most, and prices rise. Then the actual news happens as expected, and there's kind of a letdown. And oftentimes the letdown is short. Traders begin to become a little disappointed or impatient, and then we actually see the reaction. Obviously, there's no guarantee that that will happen this time around, but we did see that with the Ethereum merge, where there was a rise leading up to it, then a drop after it happened, and then a few weeks went by, and then Ethereum went off. Bitcoin, same thing. We saw a huge rise in the, I guess, arguably 4 to 6 months leading up to the halving, which was expected and a foregone conclusion. The halving occurred as expected, and prices actually dipped for a while. Then all of a sudden, you know, we get the Ethereum ETF news popping up, and prices just soar. So one could say, oh, you know, crypto went up because of the excitement about the Ethereum ETFs. I actually think it was just a natural course of action as a result of, you know, the halving being complete and the volatility kind of calming down, and getting prices back to their true market value that they would have been had the halving never even happened. So the question is, you know, with about 16 hours now going by since the Ethereum ETFs being approved, what can we expect for the rest of May and going into the summer months? And I think there's going to be a mixed bag, as there always is. It's probably going to be a bit of a delayed effect, but I do think Ethereum eventually, you know, starts to climb to some prices we haven't seen since 2021. It's the 4Ks. I don't know if it necessarily will happen by the summer or a little bit after. That's kind of up to the crowd and up to the whales, right? We're realistic in our analysis, and we take it day by day and week by week to see what kinds of divergences are showing. Anyone who says this coin will be X price by X date, they're lying to you, because there is no preset course of action for prices. It's kind of a speculation effect combined with whale behavior, and that's what drives prices on a weekly and monthly and yearly basis. So if some little piece of news comes along, you know, we start hearing about the XRP ETFs next and all this stuff, that can rise prices even more crypto-wide. I don't know if it would quite have the effect of an Ethereum ETF and especially a Bitcoin ETF piece of news, but all sorts of things can occur that can drive prices up, drive prices down. You know, a huge government decides to ban crypto, like we've seen several times in the past. So many things can happen, but based on where we're at now with the information that we know, we're going to do our best to navigate the markets with you and see what we can see here today. And of course, drop your questions in the chat. Let us know what assets you'd like us to take a look at, and we will certainly make time to look at a couple of them. We usually prioritize the people who comment first. So keep that in mind if you have something on the tip of your tongue you'd like us to look at. Now, looking at the social volume and the price changes for all of crypto, or at least the top 100 here on this chart, we can see that social volume toward Bitcoin has actually dropped a bit over the past week, 8% less discussions compared to the week prior. Ethereum is probably the reason why, because many of the normal Bitcoin discussers moved their interests over to Ethereum, and Ethereum jumped about 70% in social volume, which is massive. So understandably so, when we have ETFs being looked at and speculated to be approved, and now that they are, we'll see if the excitement continues. I expect that there's at least going to be a couple more days where, the laggers kind of catch up to the news and realize what's happened here. But going into next week, it's kind of going to be a big reset, and the next big talking point is likely going to be about which direction prices decide to start moving toward. Are we going to go back up to a quick 70K rebound for Bitcoin and a quick, move up to 4K and above for Ethereum, or is it going to take a little longer than we expect? Now, we put out some insights. If I can actually get the logged in version, there we go. So a few things that I wanted to go over. For one, stablecoins are still seeing significant increases in non-empty wallets. I think this is a really good sign. There has been indication that this can correlate with price action. You can even see here when Bitcoin's amount of empty wallets kind of started to peter out back here in June of 2022. Prices were really dropping as that happened because people were getting deflated and liquidating out of crypto entirely. Then all of a sudden we see this rebound. And ever since then, obviously it's been a pretty good time in Bitcoin and all of crypto. So this is Tether. This orange line represents. The blue line is USD coin. Down here is DAI, and down here is BUSD. Wouldn't worry too much about these two, but I wanted to include them just for comparative purposes. But you can see just how much Tether wallets in particular are growing in number. With 5.7 million now, that's of course an all-time high, and we expect that this will have a connection to the amount of buying power that is in crypto. And that's especially important if we do see, another mini or large dip. A lot of people were very worried of a massive dip here, but because there were so many Tether wallets with coins in them, there was just so much buying power that eventually, we're going to see a bit of a rebound. Now, for you TA traders out there, this point right here, which is at about 71K, if we see a higher high, that's a pretty good sign that we're going to see that all-time high soon. I can't say how soon because it's impossible to predict, but if we don't reach that 71K or so level and we start to retrace once again, that would be a concern that this was a bit of a dead cat bounce. So keep that in mind. A couple other points I wanted to make. We talked about render. Of course, Pizza Day happened. This was the 14th anniversary of the day that Laszlo Hanyecz, I'm sure I'm butchering that name pronunciation, but he paid 10K Bitcoin for 2 Papa John's pizzas. I believe that 10K would now be worth about $700 million or so. So, people celebrate this, for one, being kind of a meme, and I think laughing at poor Laszlo for not anticipating how much his Bitcoin would eventually be worth. But also, this is a celebration of the first real documented Bitcoin transaction in 2010 or so. From 08 to 09 or so, it was mostly just experimental. But this purchase was kind of when the realism of Bitcoin being used as a transaction vehicle started to come to light. Of course, we put out an article about Ethereum-based dev activity, which you can check out here. We just did a quick update on many of the ERC20s that probably are going to benefit from this ETF approval news, at least eventually. And going down the top 10 here, we have Chainlink, Status, Ethereum itself, Decentraland, Audius, SUSD, synthetics, holo, API3, and the graph. So as always, we really put a lot of credence in dev activity and its importance in the crypto ecosystem, where the cream often tends to rise to the top. If you have a team that is actively trying to improve and innovate their project, more often than not, they get rewarded by starting to climb up the market cap ranks. Another thing would be the sentiment. Now, this is about 3 days ago, but not much has changed here. There's still an overwhelming amount of positive, euphoric type of sentiment toward Ethereum. This was before the ETF news came out. It's not going to change now that the approval has happened. I would anticipate sometime next week it's eventually going to come back down and sentiment will, start to rest around here or so. But it should be bullish throughout the next few weeks at least, unless there's a big price retrace crypto wide, and then suddenly everyone starts panicking over every asset, even Ethereum, despite the good news about it. Another thing, you can tell that we did a lot of Ethereum analysis over the past week, and for good reason. Check out the various tiers of wallet sizes and how they've been behaving over the last couple of years. No surprise that the amount of 0 to 10 ETH wallets is continuing to climb. It's up 22.5% in the past year, which is about on par with its average rate of growth as we look back even between 2022 and 2023. And if we went back before then, it's a pretty consistent line up, which is a sign of a trusted project that a lot of people are comfortable holding coins in. The number of 10 to 10K ETH wallets, though, has dropped about 5.8%. That's a bit of a concern based on vague back studies. I wouldn't say this was a comprehensive back study, but we do see that the 10 to 10K ETH wallets have quite a bit of correlation with price. And this has been kind of a contradiction for the past year and a half of their overall amount of non-empty wallets going down, but price is able to rise anyways, likely due to the assistance of Bitcoin continuing to flourish and of course see an all-time high just a couple of months ago. And then lastly, 10K plus wallets. This is a lot of exchanges, big DeFi wallets, host wallets, things like that. They've been dropping pretty significantly, down 10.6% in the past year. They don't have a significant amount of correlation with the price, but it is pretty telling that these wallets have dropped quite so much. One might argue this is actually a good thing because of the fact that Ethereum is becoming less centralized. There's less massive wallets and therefore more small wallets being held by a wide variety of different people. I'll update this chart in a moment. Want to see if there's anything else I can give you an update on from the past week. Oh yeah, non-empty Bitcoin wallets too. Notice how they've been declining. We talked about this a little on last week's live stream. Drops in non-empty Bitcoin wallets are usually a good thing because it's a sign of capitulation. Obviously, there has been a lot of volatility, and Bitcoin briefly got back to 70K in the past week before declining again. But as long as this trend continues, I think it's a good sign. We don't want to see them just climb, rapidly like they were here right after leading up to the halving, because that actually is a bit of a sign of FOMO. So look for this line to continue to go down as a promising sign that the crowd is not too excited about Bitcoin, which is generally a good thing. And Brother Maxim, I see that you've joined the call. Can you hear me okay? Welcome. I sure can.
Something.
That qualifies.
Your microphone, Max, is so good. I really need to buy this one. Sound is very good. Wow, really sounds very good.
Yeah, we need to get your setup.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Sorry, Brian. I missed. I was in another call.
No worries. I kind of gave a 15-minute overview of, how the markets have been performing, the sentiment overall around the top caps, and then of course the news of the Ethereum ETFs being approved about 17 hours ago.
Did you show quite a cool chart on social dominance for ETF approvals? I will share. Wait, I was researching today. What you can type? Yeah, go social trends here and then select PPPP, search for. So in one bracket, enter SAC or ETF, yeah, and then close the bracket, and then end, and then approve or approved or approval. Yeah, because it doesn't matter as a SAC or if SAC approves now, and take maybe 1 year. It's very interesting chart. I didn't finish it analyzing. You will see that it changes, yeah, and I will say few sentences, unless I extend it to a small speech, why is it so important, the changes. But look, just by this chart, one is of course Bitcoin approval, but the interesting spike before when the market starts speculating approval, yeah. So, and it does coincide with quite intensive events, yeah. The last one, market just went down right after the approval and conversations, but it did not last long time. Then we went all the way up. Yeah, so we had, I think, like 5 days decline, and then the final push. So the key point in behavior analytics is the market participants as a crowd. Yeah, there are always exceptions. There is always minority who apply also contrarian view and view, but the majority, you look what happened in the past and you apply it in the present. So in the past, what happened? Approval, going down for some time, new all-time high. So this is what market expects. We're going down for some time, and then we catapult to the top. And I really bet, it will not happen exactly like this time. It will be different. This is how market always works, because of mass expectations, they're never fulfilled, or at least not in the time.
Right. The recency bias too, right? People often look to whatever happened last time. That's the most likely outcome to happen this time. And they
they start front running or already acting based on thing, and the reality evolves differently. It has quite a few implications. Also, when you analyze like Elliott waves or any other similar behavior analytics, you always look for alternation. At the same time, there is some fractal, like the patterns repeat, but they're changing. So it's good to have a set of patterns which you recognize on the market. And by the way, those technical analysis triangles, support line, resistance, you call them, they do exist. Yeah, it's just they don't repeat immediately one after another. It's just after some time when you don't expect the most. And here, I don't know if you look into it. I was looking today quite in the data, and except few metrics, actually it's still quite flat. Flat in the sense I don't see super much hype as it would be typically for the ultimate top. Yeah, borrowing rates. I was analyzing all lending platforms there. There was a small spike, but back to flat. Stablecoin holdings from dolphins, sharks, and whales, they're accumulating. so they're not aping in. The only one which is a kind of worrisome borrowing on most protocols, stables are being borrowed. But still, they're being borrowed, but the borrowing rates are relatively stable. So it means there is enough supply. So all in one, and of course, for Bitcoin especially, I saw that small hodlers, they keep decreasing their wallets. So it doesn't look like a top for me, honestly. So what I was thinking, it's my speculation, of course, not investment advice, as always. But I was thinking, if it has to play differently this time, why don't we try to do what will be different? And with the data I mentioned right before, the difference would be if we make top, like let's say after maybe 2-3 more days, we're kind of flat, a bit up and a bit down. Yeah, the market doesn't move anywhere, and then people would probably start believe, okay, now in this correction phase, sell the news. Yeah, so hopefully narrative sells the news will emerge, and on this narrative we do make a top. Yeah, but it will be like marginal top, slightly above this. What was in Ethereum? 4,000, around 4,000, and basically that's it. And then we go for a long time down, like really, like for 1 or 2 months. Yeah, not like just for 5 days, but a long time down, without a reason. Yeah, ETFs approved, good trading volumes. On the horizon, I don't know, Solana, Ripple, ETFs. Yeah, people discuss it, but still, market just goes down without any reason. Yeah. That will be, I think, that's my actually current playbook. I'll look into it. I might change it, but after looking today in the data, I think this is what I'm going to play.
Gotcha.
So now I got you intensive summary, and we might look into some metrics if we get there.
Yeah, let's do it. I wanted to, briefly finish up the performance of the markets overall. Obviously, Ethereum was the big story. It's up 20.6%. Pepe just continuing its run. Bitcoin itself, by the way, only up 1.5% after this latest dip, if you want to call it that. It's a pretty minor dip, but we did go from slightly above 70K to back to 67 or so. And, I think I agree with you, Maxim. I think there could be a bit of a rebound that can catch some people off guard. But overall, I think there might be a bit of a lull for the next couple of weeks as people get frustrated by the lack of, sudden price eruptions because of the SEC's approval of these ETFs. But for now, it looks like meme coins have been another big story as a result of all of this chaos going on. Bonk over here up 34%. Lido DAO, which is not a meme coin, but it's up 30% itself. But Pepe and Bonk especially were just big gainers for those who have been taking a chance on some of the more speculative assets. And we're still only a couple weeks, like 1 or 2 weeks removed from the GameStop and AMC breakouts that we saw. And of course, Roaring Kitty is still around again, like it's 2021 all over again. So we could continue to see some interesting meme coin performance. Just understand it's going to be very unpredictable. And at any time, you can be rug pulled and regret trying to ride the train. So with that said, why don't we look at some of the metrics here? I also wanted to briefly mention just by sector, meme coins, as I mentioned, doing well. ERC20s, right? As you would expect, because of this Ethereum ETF approval, and even leading up to the approval when that announcement was made by Bloomberg, that it went from 25% likely to 75% likely. That's when these coins really just started to take off. Top price performers and emerging trending assets, those are always going to have big gains right there, especially emerging trending because they're trending for a reason. Liquid staking, though, up 52.5%. Telegram bots 43%. NFT 4%. DeFi had a huge week, up 19%. So that's just a quick recap of performances by sector here. All right, now looking at Bitcoin for a bit, and we might touch on some Ethereum metrics here briefly too. But to start, looking at Bitcoin, we're not seeing anything too crazy. Perhaps a very slight boost for a few days as far as transaction volume went. But it's kind of stayed pretty cool right now. Trading volume also quite neutral. Looking at daily active addresses, continuing to drop really. I mean, you can see the continued downtrend at its peak here right after the, sorry, not the halving, but the all-time high. We were getting about 952,000 Bitcoin active addresses per day. That's now down to 703,000 per day over the past 30 days. Big drop there. Token circulation also in a bit of a downtrend as well. So not a lot of utility going on in terms of Bitcoin movement right now. We'd love to see that pick up a bit.
And then MVR. And did you see, as you're talking about activity, tell me about it. It's actually the worst indicators I'm really nervous about. Did you check CoinEdge network realized profit loss? It's like on this. Almost. Yeah, check it. I really feel nervous when I see it. Like it's nothing. No one is taking profits. So majority of the market convinced that there is only way up. It will not end up well. So unless this changes, I really attempted at least once per week to decrease my portfolio by 50%. But because of other metrics, I still hope we can make a little bit move up, and it will change at least some of these metrics to sustain it. But what you say, it's indeed it's quite a red flag. No network activity, no profit taking. It's typically what happened before the crash, because no one is concerned, and no one feels how to say need or urge to do anything.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's not good. It's only kind of good thing that, as I say, I'm still keeping. I have not diversified any of crypto portfolio yet. Small players, they decrease. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I checked today in Bitcoin. Maybe you will come to supply distribution. This is quite an interesting picture there.
Yeah.
But I think you will come to this eventually. Yeah, that's quite. Let's give some hopes.
Yeah, let's take a look really quick at supply distribution. I specifically, as you know, Maxim, I like to take a look at the 10 to 10K range.
I will take. I think yeah, exactly. Smaller ones, like I think 1 to 10K is very active. Is this the blue line?
So the blue and red are stable coins. I'll just take them off for a minute.
Okay.
You said 1 to 10K?
Yes. From what I saw today, I think yeah.
Let's take a look at 1 to 10K. So we're just
adding... 1K to 10K.
Oh, 1K to 10K.
Yes. There's one who is actually quite active, and yeah. So there, you see what they're doing lately? They're kind of trying their best.
Yeah, that's quite a rise. They're almost up to about 5 million coins owned collectively. And from a percentage standpoint, that's over a quarter of the Bitcoin now.
Yeah, and then look at the smaller ones, 201 to 101, like really small ones. Yeah. This one no need. Yeah, you see this decline. Yeah. The next category. Yeah, you will see that most of small decline, flat, and the bigger it gets, this will be flat decline, and then when it starts getting bigger, then you see at least 1 to 10,000. Nowadays, 1 to 10,000. This is actually quite whales. So this picture is good.
Yeah, what Maxim is saying is you want to see the combination of small wallets kind of dropping off, getting rid of their coins because they're afraid of there being a top, and having those sharks and those whales absorbing those coins because they're the real smart money who can push up prices. So when we see stuff like this, the 1K to 10K going up while 0.001 to 0.01 Bitcoin wallets going down, that's a recipe for success in most cases. So yeah, that is a promising sign. I like to see that the smaller wallets are continuing to drop off, and we can see, as I mentioned just a moment ago, the total amount of holders has been going down. It's at least been flat the last 2 or 3 days, but this is kind of a reflection of those smaller wallets capitulating. They have the most sway on this chart, obviously, because the vast majority of Bitcoin wallets and any wallets for any coin are going to be those micro wallets due to the ability for them to exist without much capital. So promising sign there. While we're here, I also wanted to mention the supply and profit is at about 94.5%. Obviously, that makes sense considering we're still within 5 to 7% of that all-time high we just saw a couple of months ago. And that equals a total of about 18.63 million Bitcoin. So we'd like to see that come down a little bit as more coins continue to come, which will be a little less frequently, obviously, after this halving. But assuming prices stay the same and more coins continue to be introduced into the Bitcoin ecosystem, that would make that percentage start to go down again. Funding rate also, let's take a look just in the past week, maybe past month. There we go.
I remember there was no extreme values. Actually, on your chart, it looks quite high.
Well, it depends. Yeah, DYDX, which is not, it doesn't have as much weight as Binance and BitMEX, obviously, but they're seeing a lot of long still. Deribit is pretty much neutral. BitMEX is neutral. And Binance is neutral.
We need to check here. I think mostly we need to check Binance and OKEx, I guess.
Well, this is Binance right here. But yeah, DYDX is the main exception where we're seeing a bunch of longs. But I wouldn't put a ton into that considering it isn't being followed by the big exchanges. All right, now going back to some of our other metrics here, MVRV. The 365-day average trading returns are still at a whopping plus 31.2%. It's come down a bit since the huge numbers we were seeing over 70% back in early March. But just keep in mind that we are still very much in that overheated range for the long-term traders. Short-term wise, though, we're almost back to neutral. They're only up about 3.4%, those average wallets that have been active in the past 30 days. So a little more risk than usual right now if you were to open a position in Bitcoin. But short-term wise, it isn't too much. Long-term, though, you still need to be wary of the fact that average traders are up a ton. Now, Whales, we did see a bit of an uptick from $1 million plus transactions. And I think this is probably a sign that we saw some profit taking going on about 4 days ago specifically. 3,027 transactions valued at over $1 million. That was the highest amount we've seen since April 7th. So about 6 weeks have passed, 7 weeks or so, since we last saw these large whale transactions this high. And as we saw then, that was another top signal. So this would be an argument that we might be in a bit of a decline for a little bit longer until we see another whale transaction spike, specifically the $1 million or more whale transaction spike, which would indicate that we're moving back up again. It's actually amazing how well timed some of the tops and bottoms tend to align with these spikes in whale transaction amounts, both on the 100K plus here in red and the $1 million plus here in yellow. So just keep in mind that based on the whale trends, bit of a drop, despite the fact that, as Maxim pointed out, the 1K to 10K here, they still look good. I'm just a little more concerned about the 100 to 1K going down, the 10 to 100 going down, and even the 1 to 10 going down. These three do still have some pull in the way that Bitcoin's price tends to move. All right. Ratio of on-chain transaction volume and profit to loss is pretty neutral right now. We did just point out in an insight, what was it? I think yesterday. Where is it? Well, I'll just bring it up on the chart then. I don't know why it's not showing up on the insights. But if we switch to Ethereum really quick and go down to that same ratio, it's come down now, but right before this drop in market prices, we were seeing 11 profit-taking transactions for every one loss-taking transaction. That was the largest we had seen in about a year and a half. And I think because of this drop, the transactions that are now happening are, neutralizing that ratio a bit. But it was interesting to see that phenomenon as the ETFs were approved, just so many transactions taking place, indicating profit taking was happening. All right. While we're at Ethereum here, take a look at some of the impact that this ETF madness has had over the past week. We can see trading volume, biggest spike we had seen in about 2.5 months here, with over 45.6 billion in Ethereum volume on the 22nd. Transaction volume also quite high, not as crazy of a spike, but you can see all of a sudden the amount of transaction volume returned to those levels that we hadn't seen since early March. So that's a good sign that the Ethereum network has become a lot more used all of a sudden. We'll see if that lasts now that the approvals have happened, of course. Active addresses, on the other hand, still declining. So even though we saw that volume in on-chain transaction increasing, it was not coming from just a huge spread of different addresses. This was just those same addresses that were suddenly interacting on the network more often. Circulation, we did see a lot more unique coins being moved. That, of course, makes sense with on-chain transaction volume going up, and that doesn't necessarily have to happen alongside active addresses going up. Now, unlike Bitcoin, Ethereum's MVRVs are quite high, both on the short term and the long term. So there is a bit more risk here if you're looking to get into ETH now, especially after the good news about the approvals. We still may need to see, the 30-day average wallets not be up over 10% on average. And then the 365 days through the roof, up about 51% on average. So both of those are extremely high right now. I think ideally, if you are considering adding on, you might want to wait for the orange line to at least get below 5%. The 365 to maybe come down below 40 again, something like that. But remember, it isn't just like a toggle switch where you wait until it goes below 0 and then buy a bunch. Sometimes it's just about risk assessment, and the closer it is to 0, the more neutral it is. If it's the more below 0 these lines are, the more you're getting in at a very low risk time. But if you just sit and wait for it to go below 0, sometimes you could miss out on huge gains, as we saw, especially in the early part of the year, as prices kept climbing despite the 30 and 365-day MVRVs just continuing to be high. So just keep in mind that MVRV is more of like a risk tolerance type of metric than anything else. BitMEX has been seeing some longs going on. So this is another argument that Ethereum might be a bit overheated at the moment because of the amount of greed associated with them. Binance as well is pretty neutral. DYDX a little bit of a spike, and Deribit looks pretty flat. So yeah, the BitMEX one is a bit of a big concern because of the fact that people seem to be betting quite heavily in favor of Ethereum's price going up right now, which in turn increases the likelihood of a correction happening. We'd much rather see shorts going on, and as you can see, we haven't seen any sustained semblance of shorts happening for quite a while. And of course, whale transactions, as you'd expect, look at May 20th in particular, 2353, $1 million plus transactions going on. That's the most we have seen in over 6 months, over a year. Yeah, the last time we saw this many whale transactions, it looks like it was sometime in November of 2022 as the FTX collapse was happening. So pretty jarring just to see just how active whales have been. I already talked about how the different whale tiers are doing. We would like to see the 10 to 10K ETH wallets pick up steam, but just take tiers and Ethereum with a grain of salt because of the kind of commingling of DeFi and staking wallets, and large whales having their wallets broken up into a bunch of tiny ones. That can often skew the data in Ethereum in particular. Mean dollar invested age, I wanted to look at this for Bitcoin too, but since we're here, Ethereum is starting to see a bit of a drop in the average age of coins invested in Ethereum without being moved. So 15 days is quite high, but you can see that there was a drop here starting in February, began to rise, and then all of a sudden the news came out about how the ETFs were likely going to be approved, and many dormant coins began to be moved again. No surprise based on that behavior, but now that the approvals have happened, the true test will be the next couple of weeks to see if this line continues to go down, which would be a bullish sign. And going over to Bitcoin and checking that same chart. Yeah, so you can see how it was dipping all the way until early April, and then the line began to rise again. It has been flat, so it's not like rising back up at the same pace, but yeah, Maxim, I would love to see that the trend starts to go down again as a strong.
For that, we need to price grow.
Right.
One of the reasons I actually would like to see it growing, because then we would have so much data to assess are we on top or not. If it goes down, very good, can keep growing. If we start seeing spikes around each consumed and realized profits, very good, can keep growing. But so far we haven't seen them yet.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a price boost in order to suddenly see these dormant wallets come out of the woodwork and move their coins. And in turn, that would help to justify that we're back in a big bull market once again. So when this line is moving down, very good sign that the price trend will continue moving up. If it starts to go up like this, that increases the likelihood that we might be seeing the rally coming to an end. All right, now social dominance. Mostly, let's zoom in here a little bit, just to the last 3 months. So Bitcoin has mostly just continued to get less and less discussion. In fact, right now, at just under 17% of discussions. This is the lowest it's really been, I think, all year long. Yeah, we haven't seen a dip this low, maybe very briefly on February 4th, but we're pretty much at a 6-month low level for discussion rate related to Bitcoin. And obviously the big reason for this is because of all the Ethereum talk taking away from Bitcoin talk. But I think, like I said, after the weekend is over and we start to get back to normal trading without the speculation of these approvals and will they or won't they being in the way anymore, now we're going to see if Bitcoin starts getting talked about a lot again, or if, traders start to wander over to meme coin trading and AI and big data once again. That'll dictate a lot about whether Bitcoin is able to start moving toward that all-time high once again. If we see a lot of greed toward these speculative assets, that decreases the likelihood that we will. If Bitcoin social dominance starts to come up again and traders now focus right back on BTC, that's a good sign that we can get there and see that new all-time high. So I'm very, very excited to see how this next week or two ends up going. And then, of course, RSI, you can see that Bitcoin is up near 70. Average would be 50, which I'll mark right here. And anything above it means there's a bit more risks, just like we're seeing with MVRV. Obviously, with the last few days being quite strong, this boosted up the RSI quite a bit. So ideally, we maybe want to wait for these late April levels like we saw as a good sign to buy in once again. But just like MVRV, sometimes it never gets there and you miss out if you become too stubborn and wait for the RSI to give a great buy signal. All right, quick look at social trends, and then we'll take a couple quick questions. Obviously, the top trending topics are all about Ethereum. I also see Kabosu here at number 4. This was the dog that made it to 18 years old. That was the inspiration. Doge and Shiba Inu and Kabosu. So obviously that's circulating around the news, but the main topic is all about the Ethereum ETF approvals.
By the way, Brian, you see the reason why I select specific search. So I was looking to this page as well, and then I saw what people are using. Approved, approval, and then if you scroll down, approves. This is, by the way, for those who are on the stream, this is how you do it. I come to this page every day. I know what words or topics are used by crowd, and then I just enter it. And some logic you apply. So it is, of course, ETF, but at the same time, who is approving? SEC. That's why you say if it's SAC or ETF is being approved, approval, or approves, then you have social dominance of this topic. So this tool by itself is interesting to watch every day, just to make sure you're not missing any topics. But it also teaches you how to make a very good social search. It's, in my opinion, one of the best tools we have, and we still share it for free.
Yeah, good.
Because basically it requires from you quite some effort, but no effort, no reward. Yeah? And his effort is well done.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also look at something like buy or buying or bought. It's some of my favorite views for how to perceive the social sentiment of the market at any given time. If we look at the last month here, we can see that in terms of calls, we had this one huge spike here right after the markets began to correct because people were trying to buy the dip. And obviously, when everyone believes it's a dip buy opportunity, that decreases the likelihood that it is a dip buy opportunity. So we need to see a little more doubt from the average traders out there as a good sign that we might be reversing and heading back up. But as you can see, normally there's a lot more buy calls than sell calls. These are on the same axis. Call that maybe a 2-to-1 ratio, or a 3-to-2 ratio, I should say, between buy calls and sell calls over time. But when buy calls get significantly higher, that's usually a sign that the market is getting a bit greedy and they're expecting prices to go up. Therefore, prices have a tougher time going back up. On the other hand, when we see big red spikes, kind of like here, this was the biggest sell spike by far. That's a good sign that the crowd is getting quite panicked and there actually is a good opportunity to buy. And obviously, going back to May 14th, 10 days ago, this would have been a fantastic time to get into the markets. So yeah, that's just a quick lesson on social trends. Why don't we stop our analysis here because we're getting close to the time. Balresh, if you see just a couple requests for assets or any questions, let us know.
Yeah, we had an early asset request, and we seem to have enough data for it, which is SSV network. The ticker is SSV as well.
Take a look at SSV. All right, so SSV is up about 6.5% today. It looks like it's been doing a little better than most over the last couple of weeks. It's up, yeah, pretty significantly, about 35%. But long term, if we go back 2 months ago, this was right at its peak and it's down 25%, which is the case for a lot of assets since late March because there was a pretty sizable market-wide correction. So volume-wise, we have been seeing a bit of an uptick here. This spike from yesterday was the most trading volume we had seen since March 21st. So about a 10-week or so high right there. That seems to be a promising sign because the volume is rising into the price rise. So that can add to some momentum and allow prices to continue climbing. As far as transaction volume, not really anything special going on. If we move down to daily active addresses, not much special happening here. It's kind of just going through its normal fluctuations. Circulation, not much happening there either. So utility-wise, the network hasn't really shown any signs of picking up steam. Let's see if we can get some MVRV up that is not intraday. Okay. So beginning with 30-day, it looks like the average returns are up a little over 10%. That's a bit high. We've certainly seen bigger spikes in the past, but obviously we would like to see, very low marks like what we saw back on May 10th when average returns got down to minus 16%. The 365-day returns are extremely high at about plus 80%. So I'd be very concerned about that. It does look like in terms of, competing holders and traders, if you were to open an SSV position right here, you'd be doing so when those traders have already made a lot of money on this asset, which, by the way, SSV is the 148th market cap asset. Whale transactions, I don't see a lot here. It looks like whale activity has been quite dormant. But let's take a look at the tiers here. The price is sitting at about $47. So if we were to look at the small wallets, they're of course rising as most assets do. I'd say the dolphins and sharks start to come in right here. And then these are like the whales. Overall, so if we just took like 1,000 and above, combine them all together, The number of addresses is not going the direction we would hope. There's currently 299 addresses that hold over 1,000 SSV. That's come down significantly since February 25th when it was at 328. As far as absolute holdings, if we look at it the same way, 1,000 and up. Let's take a color that is not invisible. Yeah, so it's kind of moving a little bit down. I'm a little concerned about the shark and whale behavior right now and how it's kind of been declining. Not really any sign of a rise at the moment, both from a number of address perspective as well as the amount of coins held. So that does give me some concern. A lot of profit taking too. This is the neutral line right at 1.0, right there. So anything above that means there's quite a bit of profit taking going on, and that's been happening for about 10 days now. We would like to see that for a buy signal, you want to see the lines actually below the 1.0 line, meaning there's more loss transactions than profit transactions. Not much in terms of dormant movement right now. Social volume and dominance, nothing really crazy going on. Pretty normal amount of discussion. Weighted sentiment, pretty much flat. That's usually what this means, just not a lot of discussion. And then RSI is kind of where Bitcoin is, a little bit better at 61, but still anything above 50 means there's some increased risk happening there. And then the amount of holders is mostly just continuing to go up. So I think based on what we see with SSV, there's a bit of risk. I don't love its prospects for a huge climb up like we saw back in March. And the prospect of it decoupling looks rather limited. But you never know. There could be some pump and dump groups that are actively trying to push the price of SSV up, and that can make all the difference. All right, and what's the other asset, Arash?
One more option was Arbitrum, and we were just discussing DYDX. I believe we don't have the native on-chain data for DYDX, but we could look at the on-chain activity.
We'll just do Arbitrum.
We'll
save DYDX for now.
Yeah,
maybe we can.
Even though DYDX is interesting, but it's maybe one day we could do the whole segment DYDX, JMX, and there are quite a few others who are doing similar stuff. It's actually a very interesting vertical. Yeah, but Arbitrum is interesting anyway, as we do have some data, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I remember there were some difficulties with native token, but probably it's solved.
Arbitrum looks like it's had quite a fall from grace over the last few months. Since its top here on March 6th, its price is down about 46%. Trading volume has seen a recent spike. I would assume that the person asking about Arbitrum might be anticipating a bit of a rebound after such a large drop, and the trading volume spike is a bit intriguing considering it's kind of going into the momentum of a bounce. That being said, transaction volume isn't showing any crazy signs right now. This almost looks like bot-related activity where the active addresses of Arbitrum just suddenly fell off a cliff, and it's pretty much back to around 6-month low levels right now. Circulation, maybe a slight rise going on, but more or less pretty flat. And then MVRV, it's interesting. So because of the recent rebound, the short-term traders are up quite substantially at 16%, but long-term wise, they're actually down 15%. So I like the look of this a lot more than the other coins we've looked at today. With the long-term returns being negative at negative 15%, as long as you're in Arbitrum for the long term, you could enter right now at a pretty decreased risk compared to usual. So MVRV is pointing to some opportunities there as long as you're patient and not doing a quick short-term swing trade where there might be some, further falls before we see a long-term rise. Whale transactions continuing to decline, just not a lot of activity there. Looking at its price at $1.16, that's nice and easy to identify where whales and sharks begin, right at about 100K plus. And the amount of these wallets are actually going up substantially, which is quite interesting. This does look quite bullish if we look at it on its head with just the number of addresses. If we look at the amount held, yeah, that looks pretty good. It looks like the amount of Arbitrum wallets that are held by 100K plus wallets are just massively increasing right now. From a percentage standpoint, they hold about 87% or so. So it's certainly kind of a centralized asset compared to most, but I like the potential here for a rise, considering that shark and whale addresses, at least those holding at least 100K plus coins, are moving in the right direction and they appear to be accumulating. Wondering if there's any correlation with price that we can see from the past. So it does look like it really increased as the dip was happening in April. We go back like a year or so. They're just constantly rising. I mean, this is kind of a fascinating chart. It just shows that there's more and more of these very large addresses being created all the time over the last year, regardless of price. So I would take it with a bit of a grain of salt because this same pattern has been going on for so long. Maxim, if you're there, I'm very curious what you think about this, like why the 100K plus coin tier just continues to rise.
Well, someone believes in a bright future. What else?
But do you believe there's a little bit of nefariousness to this, where it might be happening inorganically?
What do you mean with inorganically?
Maybe a lot of founders' addresses or just a ton of new coins being printed all the time.
From Arbitrum?
Yeah.
Maybe there's been some unlocks actually. Max Powers, I don't remember as I'm not using the service so often, but there are some good websites with unlocks. I cannot follow up on all of them, but
I don't have one from the top of my head.
Let me ask our AI bot. There could be. Yeah, there've been for May quite some unlocks planned. I'm not sure if Arbitrum in this case, but yeah, why not? Why not? Possible.
Yeah, if there are just scheduled unlocks, this could be a bit of a deceiving line. That's all I'll say. Like I said, I think I'm not familiar enough with Arbitrum. There's even team members on Santiment that know the network a lot better than I do. But I just think with just consistent rising numbers of shark and whale wallets, regardless of what time frame we look at, this could just be a case of a lot of unlocks happening all the time, and it skews this kind of data, which is disappointing because I was very interested to see whether there could be some great correlation with shark and whale behavior with Arbitrum's price. But I still think that MVRV is probably the best metric to look at here. And it's showing that long-term wise, there could be some opportunities in the near future.
I have another idea. Why don't we look for social dominance, weighted social sentiment, and def activity on one chart. Actually, I've never looked at for, or at least for a long time, for Arbitrum. Yeah? So social dominance. My typical setup, I like to enter, if I enter on low social dominance, and sentiment doesn't matter, but doesn't matter much. Depends what we see. Okay, then take maybe 1 year. Okay, so this, let's see social dominance. Okay, it's on the lower end, not the lowest, but quite low, pretty close to lowest. Okay, that's already good. Weighted social sentiment. Yeah, you could say not positive at all. That's cool. Because you see, actually, in this case, it's what I was hoping to see is that tops, they did correlate it with high weighted social sentiment. This is the moment you don't want to be there. Okay, and then def activity?
Looks like it's in the middle of it.
Yeah, but there's okay.
From the number perspective, you're right. I mean, 46.5 per day on the GitHub activity side is quite high.
Yeah, that's good. Doesn't look bad. Taking into account that indeed no one is talking much about Arbitrum. Now when I'm recalling, and I'm on, I do analyze social media. There are plenty of talks about, I don't know, Eigenlayer or then another one version, I don't know, Lido doing Polygon and all the stuff Zcassing now doing. No one is talking. Optimism talked more, as it has some deployed chains based on Optimism stack. Arbitrum, I don't remember when I saw last time being mentioned, which is often a good sign. Actually, the same I was thinking today. Arbitrum is one, but you remember the hype around Toncoin? Like a few weeks ago when there was this announcement on in Dubai in token 2049, and Durov went on stage. Wow, that was exactly the top. Don't make a mistake. And since then, it's a kind of correcting or declining. So we might get into the good setup soon too. I like the setups when there is a hyped top, sells the news event, and then it just keep declining. Even with this not coin. I mean, there is obviously potential of creating crazy stuff on Ton blockchain. And we had the one use case, and I see that there are a few others, yet the price is not reacting. So you might be looking, ideally it will go even lower, but how low, I don't know. And it's similar, my way of thinking, to Arbitrum. No one is talking about Arbitrum. Of course, about Ton, more people talk, but it's not reacting the price. All in one, it's not a bad one. Yeah, it's not a bad one indeed.
Yeah, Arbitrum is currently ranked 37, so it's still in the top 40. But it's crazy to see Toncoin now as a top 9 market cap asset. Considering.
Oh yeah, why? They have huge auditorium or mass adoption already by default. The question is, of course, how good can they deploy Web3 decentralized technologies? This is an open question. It's not always so simple, but they have customer base. What I'm wondering, how much is USDT and USDC on Arbitrum? Can we track it? Yeah, maybe like balances.
Sure. So
you can
you're
always,
talking about...
Yeah, you can always select. Is it now USDC on or USDT on Arbitrum?
This is USDT on Arbitrum.
And let's say this wallet's 10 to 100, 100 to million, and like 10,000 to 100,000. Yeah. So I want the total supply. What will be?
10 to 100,000. 294.64 million, and it went up significantly in March and early April.
So it's not bad. So something's going on there. Yeah. So there are probably some liquidity pools for farming. So it's alive. And keep in mind, GMX is an Arbitrum, now I recalled.
Yep.
So it's quite alive. Yeah. Whoever's hold Arbitrum, I think it's not bad. But again, not investment advice. Just by looking at stuff and recalling how little people are talking about. And metrics looks okay.
The patient tend to get rewarded. So we will see.
Yeah.
All right, Maxim. Well, thank you for joining today. I think we had a nice, productive call, went over quite a bit. Let us know what you think in the comments, guys. We would love to hear from you, and feel free to mosey on over to our Discord and talk with Maxim, myself, and many of the other staff members. Give us a ping so we can see your questions, and we'd be happy to talk further about the markets. And in the meantime, continue to trade safe. And Maxim, thanks for joining, my friend.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for running. Talk to you next week.
You bet. Take care, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.